What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Uncle Sonny Live Project, where we have conversations with different thought leaders and entrepreneurs and creatives so that we can kind of get an insight into the mindset that it takes for you to live a life by design instead of by default. Today, I'm super excited about our guest. I've been looking at his TikTok videos, his YouTube videos for a while now. They've personally inspired me. This guy is not afraid to go there. He will trigger you into being your best self 100%. And I resonate with that energy because if you know anything about me, I'm going to say what ruffles your feathers, but behind it is the intention of growth. We have Levi Washington in the building. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you feeling?
Appreciate you, man. I'm feeling good on my side of things, that's for sure. I'm honored to be here, and I'm looking forward to exploring this thought with you and what we can discover.
Sure. Awesome. So I do believe that you're the first Canadian on the podcast. So
Represent.
Legendary move right there. Before we get started, I do want to give you the opportunity to kind of introduce yourself. Where have you been? Where are you going? What has your journey been like? And where are we headed?
What an evolution. That's a big question. That question could literally take quite a long time. So I'm gonna try and put it in a nutshell for you, because I want to save your time on the air. It's not about that. So
take your time, man. It's all yours.
I would say success is measured in the lives and the hearts that you touch, right? And I've spent a long time without purpose, seeking value and importance and happiness in all the things that media and other people would kind of paint the picture for me that I thought that would bring me fulfillment. And when that never really did, and my cup always felt like it was half full, I was always left wondering, there has to be more, there has to be more, there has to be more. But it had to get to a point where it really felt like there was nothing left. I had to come to quite a low where I was struggling heavily with addictive behaviors, depression, anxiety, just feeling very apathetic about life. Like, what's the point? What's the point in what I do every day? I didn't really enjoy the job I was in. It was the family business. So I have this job that's handed to me on a silver platter. I own my own house at 21 years old. I own my own car. I have all of these things that very few other people have at that age. And yet I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. And what a weird thing. So on the outside, very few people really understood that. They're like, what do you mean? You have everything. But I really felt like I had nothing. And it was never enough. It was never enough. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. It never feels like it's quite enough, because what it came down to was there was a lack of purpose. There was a lack of what is actually my impact when my body dies? What would be said about my name? And I think that's where I started to explore what I was feeling. And I didn't really understand it. I was a very angry guy at that time, looking to kind of dominate other people as a form of self-confidence and like trying to find my identity. And that was a very negative place. And I didn't really know where that was coming from. It was always like, I'm angry, I'm this, I'm that. But I had to come to a place where, okay, why am I angry? Why do I feel that way? And that's when I started getting into writing. So I started writing, and because having a journal wasn't that masculine, I decided to write poetry instead, which, I mean, in retrospect, I mean, writing poetry isn't any more masculine, but at least I could justify it. I was like, Tupac writes poetry, right? You know, J. Cole writes poetry. So that's and it created a little bit more fun with it too, because then it was almost like a puzzle that I could put together through metaphors and say things without actually saying them. So I found a lot of freedom in that, where I could say things to myself that I didn't really want to actually say. And I learned to dance around with words, and I fell in love with it. And that was kind of where I found a lot of freedom, was through writing. And then I started like thinking, okay, well then how can I invest this into the world? And so I started sharing poetry. I got up on an open mic, and I had to get like a little bit inebriated first to even get up there, because I was so afraid. But on the other side of that fear was other people's freedom. And every time that I speak, every time that I share, the deeper I can go into my own pain and my own struggle, the more freedom other people can find through that. And one step after another became the next step. And I put it on Instagram, and then I put it on a little bit on YouTube. And then as I grew and evolved, one thing, and then TikTok came up, and I started posting on TikTok, and that just started blowing up out of nowhere. And so since then, I've just been kind of riding that wave and seeing where this next step takes me. So I've been starting to write a book now. I was supposed to start speaking in high schools before COVID closed all the schools. So that door closed, and that redirected me to put even more focus into the book. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm just, I'm looking to God to continue to establish every step that I take. So.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful thing. And this is something that you cannot fake. Like when you know that when you see somebody that is a light, you know that they've had to go through their darkness. And I appreciate you for being vulnerable and being open and authentic, not only on TikTok, YouTube, but right here, right now, and being able to talk about that, because that gives other people permission to do the same. And my next question would have been, if you're ever nervous or apprehensive about bringing people into that darkness, like, does it ever come up that we might be doing more damage than good? Does that ever cross your mind?
When I share something from that darkness in me?
Well, I understand what you say as coming from your own experience, your own darkness. But the most effective way, and the way that you do create your content, is viewer focused. So the reason why you're this, and this is because this, and this. So you are taking your experience, but you're allowing them to own it. So by doing that, you're bringing them into their own darkness. And when we do that, because I'm asking this question because I've triggered a lot of people on social media, right? And a lot of people come to me like, this isn't right, this is da-da-da, this is that. But you're taking a snippet from a short Facebook post or a very short video and thinking that that's all the work, that's all the understanding. So does it ever cross your mind that bringing people into that darkness is, I don't know what I want to say, because I know what I'm feeling, but you get where I'm going?
Yeah, I feel where you're going with that. And that's like a really cool, like you're really thinking about what you're putting the other person through, which is so important. Not many people do that before they speak. They just speak without even thinking about what's on the other side of what they're saying. What I typically see, what I observe with that is people will often just reject what they're not ready to hear. It's those who have eyes to see, those who have ears to hear. And the people that are ready to hear it will, and the other people they'll end up triggered and they'll just shut it off, and they're maybe not ready to go there, or maybe it doesn't really apply to them, or they want to show that it doesn't apply to them, so they just block it off and get triggered and mad and like, this isn't me, you don't know me, like that kind of thing. But at the end of the day, I think the people that are closer aligning themselves with truth and having that courage to speak, the people that do hear it and it changes their lives, I think that is what needs to be focused on, rather than the people that are getting triggered and kind of not facing the things in their life. We're trying to bring down this like somebody that goes out and tries to pull down somebody speaking truth as best as they know it. It's one thing to challenge somebody in their truth. It's another thing to just come up and start calling them false and all like it. What I'd like to say basically is, no, I think a lot of times it's worth it. And if people get triggered, that's on them for their reaction.
I do believe, and I do understand that when you're getting triggered, that is the roadmap. That is the point where you need to be looking at for your healing.
Word.
If there wasn't nothing to heal, you wouldn't feel anything in that direction. And to resist it is to only strengthen the trauma that is causing you to be triggered in the first place. I would like to hear from your perspective, having gone through different transformations and gone through your darkness, what type of freedom can somebody expect from going into the pain instead of running from it?
I think, can't remember whose quote it is. Maybe Lang? Doesn't matter. If you want to have branches that reach to heaven, you have to understand that you have roots that reach to hell. And that's very important. So being able to go into that darkness, knowing how deep you can go, knowing that you are dangerous, is important to actually know how much light you're capable of as well. And so there is healing. And the deeper that you can heal, the deeper you can dig that foundation, the higher you're actually able to build.
All right. So what I'm hearing is, by diving deep into your darkness, by diving deep into, let's call it your evil, because that's what's in hell, is your evil, that you take the limits off of your good at the same time. That there's no limit to how high you can go.
I think that that's an very interesting conversation that I really enjoy thinking about, because darkness is the absence of light. So the deeper that you can dig and bring light to those things that are so deep and so dark in you, you actually bring them to light, and you bring heaven to those places that need heaven, that need light, right? And the other kind of a picture analogy that I get from it is, if you have weeds in your garden, you have to dig them out from the root. You have to go to the root. And a lot of times we just take the lawnmower and we trim them down and pretend they're not there. Like, oh, nobody can see them now because it's beneath the surface. But if you don't take out the root, it's still there and it will still spread. The dangerous stuff is what's underneath the ground, and you have to be able to get your hands dirty and do the work to go deep and pull the weeds out from the root.
Right. Now, there's a part of this healing process that's kind of tricky, because a lot of these traumas, a lot of these memories, out of, I guess, protection, a defense mechanism, we've suppressed so many of them, so they're not easily, we can't call on them consciously, but they're there and they exist and they act on us. Are there any type of ways that we can start to dive deep and try to uncover and unearth some of these traumas so that we can finally address them?
100%. You're totally right. Professional help. Always. There's a lot of stigma around professional help, but I always like, man, if you break your hand, if you break your arm or whatever, and you don't go to a doctor and get it reset, put in a cast, do the proper rehab on your muscles, man, it's not going to work properly, obviously. And yes, if you just leave it, time alone doesn't heal. So you'll have this broken arm and you just leave it like that for a while. The pain will go away, but you won't be able to use that arm anymore. And you call that living? No, right? You have to go and seek somebody who knows what they're doing to kind of help you through that, especially if it's something that's very, very old. You actually have to re-break that bone now that is healed over wrong and doesn't look the same. You got to re-break it and reset it. And that takes professional help. You can't do that on your own. You can't, somebody who gets hurt as a pro athlete has a whole team to get them back on the field. So what are we doing as a DIY project with our hearts and our minds? Like, it's very important, to seek professional help, to seek advice, to seek mentorship, to seek other people that have been through healing or know some of the tools, because you're out here trying to build a shed with just a hammer. You don't have all the tools yet. You want to build this thing, but you don't have the how-to. You don't have the tools. You don't know how to use the tools. So you got to go seek advice from somebody who has some of those tools. And that's okay to do. It's okay to ask for directions, unless you want to stay lost. So don't let your ego get in the way. And that's usually what it comes down to, is like, your ego is the reason why you are not healing. You're refusing to look at that. You're refusing to put that ego down and learn.
Yeah, your ego is not your amigo, for sure. For sure. You actually just triggered a thought in me that I had last night. Never made it public or anything like that. I guess I consider it still cooking, but I want to throw it at you and see what you say, because I know that in a lot of your content, you talk about relationship stuff. And the thought that came to me was, the reason why you're not over your ex is because you thought a new relationship was going to help you get over that ex. And now you've had to break two hearts to heal one, which is your own.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's kind of what is preached a lot, is to get over somebody, get under somebody else. But that's just the band-aid. That's putting like a band-aid on the cancer that's actually inside of you, not addressing what is actually going on, because you're seeking to be numbed and stimulated. So right now you're feeling like you're not good enough. So you attach yourself to somebody else to try and feel good enough to fill yourself full of their love, to fill that hole, that space that has been left by that relationship that is over. And really it doesn't do anything for your healing. It just attaches a whole nother set onto you. And now you've got exactly two to deal with, two sets of strings to cut from. So it's really important to go through grieving and healing before you start attaching yourself to another person to fill that hole, because nobody's going to fill it. Nobody can. That's between you and God. That's not between you and anybody else.
I think that's an important thing to say, and an important thing for people to realize, that it's not just that nobody will fill that void, but they're actually incapable of doing it. Mm-hmm. So to expect that from somebody is a 100% chance that you are going to be shooting yourself in the foot. 100% chance. Never, ever put the key to your happiness in somebody else's pocket. Oh, that's like one of my 10 commandments.
Yes.
Never.
Love that.
Hey, Levi. So let's say we have somebody who has started doing the work, that is aware, that has been meditating, that kind of is going on a spiritual journey. Nobody's ever there yet, but when would you say you're healed enough for whatever it is?
Ooh.
How do you know you're healed?
Good question. Honestly, there are days when I still wake up doubting if I'm healed. There are days when I still hear the same demons or what have you, whatever you, voices in my head, my own, telling me I'm not good enough and reminding myself of that situation or the things in the past. But I feel like I've healed them, but they still talk to me. So I don't think it's about, like, they don't go away. They don't disappear. But I think I'm at a place where I can say thank you to them. And I think that's where I think the healing really comes in. When you can find gratitude, that's when you can see it for the lesson. And when it has become a lesson, that's when it's like, okay, and maybe it's not quite the same as it used to be, but now this is a lesson in my life, and now I do things differently because of it. So that is now how I would say healing. That's what healing really looks like.
Wow. Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. So what's coming up for me is that healing is not so much getting rid of the experience or the effects of it, but instead shifting the relationship that you have to it, shifting how you respond to it, the conversation that you have with it.
Yeah, I just got like a little bit of goosebumps there.
Yo,
yeah,
bro,
exactly,
you're not the only one,
man.
bro. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. Yeah, that's magic. That's magic for sure. Shoot. So, how about in situations where it's not so much romantic, but maybe career-wise? Maybe somebody wants to make more money. Maybe somebody wants to start a passion-driven business, but they're in their own way. How can we start a conversation with a person like that?
The first question I usually like to ask is, what is the impact that you have this passion? What is your vision for it? What is the impact that you are looking for it to create in your life, and then eternity basically after your life? What does it leave? What is it for? What is the driver? What is the motivator? What's the reason behind it? Why do you want that? And that was really important for me. Like, I worked for a while as a personal trainer, and that's what I would ask people. They'd come to me, they'd tell me the body that they want to have, and I would ask them why. Why do you want that? You need to know your why. You need to know, okay, what will that bring to your life? How will your life look different if that is the case? How will it impact something outside of your own life? Because that's a really big question. Because I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there, and I'll let you continue and dig a little bit more.
I mean, I agree with you 100%. I think that's probably the most important thing, is to have a vision, and to not only have a vision, but to know why that's important. And what I tell people is, when you do ask yourself why I want to do what I do, there's a series of questions you need to ask yourself after that, and they're all the same question: why?
Why?
Why? Okay, now why is that important? Okay, you got the answer to that. Why is that important? And you keep going. And I feel like you have a good enough why reason when your answer is just so big and it's so much bigger than yourself that you cannot see yourself dropping the ball. You cannot see yourself going in a different direction because there's so many other things that's going to affect outside of your life. Like for me, it's generational wealth. If I don't show up, then I'm pretty much agreeing to put my family through the same financial trajectory. Just keep going down, being limited, not being able to live their dreams. If I don't show up, I'm on a mission to inspire 1 million people to have the guts to follow their guts, you know, because I believe that when you believe in yourself, you make the world a better place. So me not following through means that the world doesn't get to change. That's unacceptable. For me to make that decision is 100% selfish, you know? So I coach people in that direction, and I would have answered the question the same exact way as you did it.
Yeah, man, I love that. I got the goosebumps again just listening to that part of your heart, man. That's beautiful, truly. And you're right. And the other thing that I ended up seeing when I go there is a lot of us we're afraid. But then when you've got to that level of a why, when it impacts so much more than just you, your fear, it's almost like, what's on the other side of your fear? So you're going to be so selfish to sit there in your fear and deny all of this. Your fear is bigger than the dreams of your children. Right. Now you're just selfish. Now, you know. Yeah. So if that's something that motivates me a little bit, like that can be a hard one to swallow, I think. But it's like, man, if I don't get up on the stage and get on this mic, I know I'm afraid, but I don't know who's in the crowd right now. And am I so selfish? I'm not that selfish. No way.
Right. And when you have that awareness, when you have that perspective that what you're doing is bigger than you, you now have the ability to turn your fear into excitement. Where you feel nervous, you can say, I'm not nervous, I'm just excited. And you can mean it. But when you're only focused on yourself and how this is only affecting you, trying to make that shift from nervous or fearful to excited is kind of hard because you're only thinking about rent getting paid. Yes. You know, it's like, how am I excited about maybe not paying rent? Like, yeah. They say that, I've heard people say that depression and, you know, a lot of these ill feelings, fear being one of them, is what happens when you're so focused on self. And a really good way to shift that is by focusing on others. How can I be of service? And one post that I posted a little while ago on Facebook, and I had a conversation with someone else about it, was that if you're feeling depressed, go volunteer at a homeless shelter or something like that right away. And I had a lot of people that really resonated with it. But of course, we have a lot of people, no, depression is a mental illness and how dare you minimize it so much and blah, this and the other. Like, okay, guys, I'm not talking about a magical pill or anything like that. This is a suggestion based on the understanding that if you can get out of focusing on yourself and focusing on giving somebody, you know, support or help or service, that you might have a chance of shifting your mindset and getting out of depression, you know. But I think we're in the same position where we have a lot of backlash off of very short sound bits, short pieces of information that could be very helpful, but like you said, the person has to be ready to hear it.
Word. I love that idea. And I find there's so much truth in that. I say that sometimes. I remember as a kid, I always, growing up, I wasn't really a kid at that point. I was in my late teens, but it was always very important to me I love volunteering. So I've been to Ukraine, I've been to Dominican Republic, I've been to Mozambique, I've been to a lot of different places around the world to work in orphanages and different types of things, because it's always been so near and dear to my heart. And honestly, those are the times I've felt the most purpose, the most full. Like there is no depression or anxiety allowed space when I'm doing those things. And so somebody who has struggled with depression and anxiety at certain levels in certain times in my life, it's groundbreaking and something that I love to share, because I'm hoping somebody takes the ball and runs with it. Even like at some point in my life when I have the ability and the time and an abundance to be able to do it, I'd like to put it into place. But a program maybe where you take some kids who are struggling in school, struggling with depression and anxiety, and rather than putting them on meds and taking them to a therapist, why don't we take them on a trip where they build houses for other kids their age that don't have houses for about a month, and then bring them back and see how they perform in school the next year? I think that would be crazy, because it does two things. It gives you perspective, one, on what you have, and then two, the power that your actions actually have to change other people's lives. Because I think that's where you can find some purpose. You have to start to understand that your actions literally have power to change the world. And that's where a lot of people, like, you're depressed, you're anxious, you don't know your power. You don't know what you're capable of.
Right.
But yeah, it does get met with some backlash, because it's for sure. For sure.
Because it's a touchy subject. You're bringing people into their pain. You're triggering people, and there's a lot of misconceptions about what I was doing. Oh, I'm just trying to get shock value. I'm just trying to get engagement and all these different things. Honestly, I was just in a place where I'm just in a stream of consciousness. Like if it crossed my mind, it crossed your timeline. I've been doing a lot of studying, and it's coming out, and I'm just not afraid to be wrong. Like if I'm wrong, let's talk about it. Help me grow, help me understand, because I think that what's more important than me being right all the time is that I'm my best self, so that I can be of service to somebody else. So I guess just by me saying that out loud is me realizing how much I've minimized my own ego. Like it's not about me. Like I'll be wrong, I'll be stupid, I'll be whatever you want to call me. I'll be Kanye, whatever it is. But let's start thinking. Let's start communicating. That I will sacrifice my own image for you to start thinking critically. And diving deep into these subjects. And something that's interesting to me is that through college, like I'm in a fraternity, and volunteering was something that we did. Community service is a part of the organization. So I always did like community service. I didn't really think too much of it. I knew it was good, it was this and the other, but it was just something that we kind of did. And what I found was interesting was when I told certain people that I'm doing community service, a lot of their first questions were, okay, well, did you go to court? Like, what's this? Is this a court order or what? And I'm like, what? What are you talking? Why is that what you assume?
Right.
But now that I'm outside of it, I'm starting to see, especially from hearing from you, how important it is to take that initiative and how beneficial it is, not only to those who you're serving, but to you as an individual.
Right.
So there's this idea, now that we're on the topic, that rich people are evil. And, being poor, being humble is noble, is the way to be. If you want to get into heaven, is that something you want to touch on?
Ooh, heavy. Okay, let's explore it a little bit. We can unpack. We can touch that a little. Feel comfortable. If you want to talk like faith and Bible, look how many prominent biblical characters were rich. Solomon, Daniel, prominent figures in their societies, leaders of their societies. So to say that you have to be broke to get into heaven, no. And are all rich people evil? Also no. But I find riches, for me, what I watch is somebody who's been blessed heavily has a harder time being selfless. it's difficult. It's difficult. Like for somebody who, let's say you're blessed with physical appearance and now your identity is wrapped up in the way you look, and your life just kind of, if you have access to all this abundance and you don't have to really work for a whole lot, things just tend to just come to you. It's, you don't go through the same storms. It doesn't have the same level of, man, I really would love to. Thank you for challenging me with that thought, because I don't think I have the words yet to speak on it very clearly, but I know exactly what you mean. And I know in my own experience, which is what I can probably speak from, rather than trying to put a blanket statement on this, but from my own experience. So I've always been relatively good at what I do. Whatever it is, whether it's sports or school or writing, things just come relatively naturally. I'm a decent looking guy. And so it's very easy to get wrapped up in all of the very surface things. And if you get wrapped up in the surface stuff, it's very hard for you to go deep. Very hard for you to go to deep. It's very hard. Why would I need to like go into my character if people just love me for, the way that I look or what I have? And then all of a sudden my identity is wrapped up in the way that I look and what I have. And it's no longer important to me to have any deeper character, because this is what my life becomes about. This is what other people see me as. And so this is what I am. I can't leave my house, but there's a lot of pressure too. I can't leave my house without looking perfect. I have to be perfect all the time because people expect Levi Washington to look a certain way, to talk a certain way, to drive a certain type of car. And so that becomes the identity that I live by. And it's not that I'm evil, but that's literally where my identity is. And it's almost like it's a cycle that I can't break out of, because that's what I've become because of that. Other people expect this from me. That's what I need to be now. And when I was working in modeling as well, you see a lot of the women, the most beautiful girls in the world, the most insecure girls in the world, because their entire identity is wrapped up in the way that they look. They literally can't leave the house without their heels on because they are so wrapped up. They have to be perfect because that's what the world expects of them. And that's tragic. That's sad. And nobody values their character, so they have no reason to grow it. So that's kind of like, that's what I would say about like riches and blessing, and how it's difficult to go deep and dig deep when you have all that stuff on the surface blocking your way to get deeper.
That's dope. And I think that, so what you've triggered in me is how we are looking to fill the expectations of society around us. But in order to overcome that, I think it's important to realize that it's really just our perception of the expectations around us. So when you do that, you take the power back from society and you say, look, this is what I think they think about me. This isn't necessarily who I am or what I have to be. This isn't necessarily my role in society. And now I get to go deeper, but now I'm thinking, what reason would you have to do that? I mean, I guess feelings of emptiness and just wanting to have a deeper identity for yourself. But if you've always projected and experienced that nobody cares about what I think or how I feel, that's probably the part where you get stuck. That's probably the most difficult part.
That's the trap.
It's thinking that, is knowing that you need to get deep, but nobody cares about you being deep, and there's no reason to do it.
And the second you do notice, people stop caring about you. Like you can probably see that in a lot of celebrities. The minute they're doing good things, the minute they try and say something, try and be something more. No, they want you to be. They put you in this box. This is what you are. You have to, So buy 50 Rolls Royces rather than speak on character, because that's not what gives you any sort of validation. All of a sudden the media drops you off and nobody talks about you anymore. You start doing humanitarian work, nobody talks about you. They think you're just doing it because you're trying to gain clout and show how good of a person you are, but you're not really that good of a person. So you don't win. You can't win.
Right. Yeah. You gotta do it for you. I think that this is probably one of the more important episodes because it's diving deep and it's not, just looking at what you have to gain material wise, but what you have to gain as far as your identity is concerned, as far as your character is concerned. And I say that right before I say it's important for everybody listening to lose their damn mind. To not be afraid to lose your goddamn mind and just go crazy, because in that craziness, I think that's where you find yourself, and we're resistant to going crazy because we're scared. It's out of our comfort zone. But that's where you find your true identity. Like, it wasn't until this mind stream, this stream of consciousness that I started posting on social media constantly, where people thought I was crazy, that I found like my truth, you know? And that's a result of going through the darkness, which that was so much more crazy than what anybody saw on social media. But now I'm in a space where my goal is to bring more of that out and show more authentically and tell that story, so that people that are going through it can have that type of support and have that type of insight, and people that have not yet gone through it can kind of start questioning themselves, start having different conversations with their parents. I've like asked my parents like random questions like, yo, I'm having issues with discipline. Like, do I have any traumas? Like, of course, they're not going to know, but I'm just like looking for, like, give me the crazy so that I can address it and get over it, you know?
I want everything to hit me right in the face.
Right.
I love it. It hurts. It hurts so good, man. Like, that just means I get to grow. That's all that means. That pain is just weakness leaving my body, right?
Yes. Yeah, bring it on. Bring it on. I've changed. I get a lot of questions on TikTok, like, how do you get through bad days? And I think it's like what we were talking about before. It's just changing your relationship to challenges. You know, when you realize that every challenge is meant to build you and grow you, you start running towards it. And that connects to another idea of mine, that if you chase it, it will run, right? So if you chase the relationship, it's going to run. If you chase money, it's going to run. So what do? I chase challenges.
Yes.
And it's so hard for me to find them.
Yes.
I can't find them.
Man, I love that you said that. And I was trying to bring parallels to, so like fitness was something that I was into, right? Fitness is always something that I was into, and it's the same thing. If you have this picture of this perfect body that you want, and you are chasing that, it is running from you. Odds are that is not your genetics. You are not going to look like Thor. I'm sorry. If you chase that, it's going to run from you. You're never going to reach that thing. It's just going to always be eluding you. But if you chase your commitment every single day, you chase that one extra push-up, you chase that one extra challenge, you chase that one, all of a sudden your body just starts changing. And it becomes something for you, and you're not chasing a comparison to something that you'll never achieve, but you start becoming the best, strongest version of that your body can be, because you're focused on the challenges. 100%. Same. It's always a parallel. Like, whatever happens physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, the way that you grow those things is all the same, which is why I typically encourage people, like, if it's hard for you to start emotionally and spiritually in all those places, start physically. If you've never trained your body physically and you've never pushed yourself past the limit, you need to learn how pushing past limits creates growth and creates positive feedback. And so that's why a lot of the strongest mental people are usually seasoned athletes and stuff like that. They have such a great mental game because they've learned to push their body and their mind through things that most people have not.
Right. Yep. Super important stuff. Now, we can definitely go back and forth and talk about this much longer, but we're at the time where it's almost time to cut it off. But before we tap out, I want to give you the opportunity to get the last words in, and I want to ask you, what's the one thing that everybody listening right now needs to tap into more than anything else?
Wow. The first step. That's what you need to tap into first, because it's the first step. And that, I think, is getting to know yourself a little bit better. And I think the best tools for that is a piece of paper and a pen with some intention. Because it's one thing to journal and just talk about your day. It's another thing to journal and ask yourself what you're feeling, and then ask why and why and why and why. The wisdom of a child, right? They just ask why and why and why and why. Watch the children, man. Like, there's wisdom there. You'll get to this bigger picture of who you are and why you want to be like that. And then you can start to redefine the things that other people have defined for you. And I think that that is a good place to start.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. I hope y'all taking notes. Hope y'all taking notes. So that is that's all the time we have. I want to thank you so much, Levi, for stopping by, for sharing your experience, for sharing your light with us. I want to know how we can connect with you, what you're working on, and what type of support are you looking for?
My man, that propped me up on that shameless plug. I didn't have to do it myself, right? You can find most of my stuff. I'm posting mostly on TikTok and Instagram, and it's both the same, at Levi Washington, and that's where you can find most of my work. I'm currently working on a book that I'm looking to put out next year. That is my focus, and we'll see where that takes me. If you want to follow along in that journey, please hit me up on Instagram and TikTok.
Beautiful stuff. Beautiful stuff. So we're gonna get the book. We're connecting with you on TikTok, on YouTube. We're following along. Right. Thank you so much, and everybody listening. Love. Be well, and don't forget to have the guts to follow your guts. Peace.